Hezbollah and Israel are exchanging heavy cross-border fire a day after the most intense Israeli bombardment in decades killed nearly 500 Lebanese citizens. At least 90 women and children are among the dead. Well, these are pictures from southern Lebanon filmed within the last hour. The Israeli military says it carried out hundreds of attacks on Monday. Most were in southern Lebanon, but soon expanded into the east. And this is the scene in Lebanon's Bekaa province to the east of the capital, Beirut. Multiple Israeli strikes have hit the area in the past few hours. Hospitals in southern Lebanon and even the capital, Beirut, are overwhelmed. More than 1,600 people have been injured in Monday's attacks. The health ministry has instructed staff to postpone non-emergency surgeries. Health facilities were already struggling to treat thousands of people injured when Israel detonated explosives and pagers and walkie-talkies in coordinated attacks last week. Schools and other facilities are being used as temporary shelters. In response, Hezbollah has fired a barrage of rockets into northern Israel. The group says it's targeted military bases, airfields, and an explosives factory 60 kilometres from the border. Israel says the Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted most of the rockets. And here is the scope of those Israeli attacks. The operation expanded from southern Lebanon into the Bekaa Valley. For the second time in a week, the Israeli military targeted Beirut's southern suburb of Dahia. Zain Basravi is standing by with the latest reaction from Israel. We will be live in a moment in Marjayoun in southern Lebanon with Imran Khan. But first, let's go to Zaina Khoda. She is also in the south. She's in Sidon, Lebanon's third largest city. And Zaina, it has been so busy on that highway behind you for hours, perhaps since yesterday. Many people fleeing the south. They are coming to Sidon. What are you seeing and hearing? What are people telling you?
Well, we are along the main highway that links southern Lebanon to the Lebanese capital, Beirut. As you can see behind me, the stream of cars continue making their way further north. Traffic has eased somewhat, but yesterday there were traffic jams as thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not even more. It's really very hard to estimate the number of people who have fled southern Lebanon. This is not the first displacement. During 11 months of fighting, 110,000 people were displaced. They moved further north, but up to 10 kilometers of the border, according to the United Nations, there were 150,000 people. Most of those villages are now empty. We're also getting reports from the two main cities in the south, Tyre and Nabatihi, that there has been really mass displacement. So there is a humanitarian crisis. We've been talking to people here, families. What they've been saying is that they just don't know where they're going. Yes, they're hearing reports that the government is opening shelters and schools across the country, but people really are largely concerned about how long they're going to be in displacement. You see people carrying mattresses on the top of their cars, children afraid. A lot of the people we've been speaking to say they fled under bombardment. And really that was the case yesterday when we were in southern Lebanon. Airstrikes, almost non-stop, almost everywhere around us, even along the highway as people were making their way to Beirut. So there was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and really the question now is, what next? How long are they going to be displaced? A lot of these people are poor and impoverished in a country where the economy has all but collapsed.
And Zaina, I know that it is very loud there, so I hope that you can hear me, but a lot of the fear and the anxiety that you're talking about, it's not just because of the deadliest day in Lebanon in decades, but it's because of the state that the country is in, the pressures that it's been under, and quite frankly, it is not a country that can take this added pressure, let alone a war.
No doubt, there has been multiple crises, whether the economy collapsing in 2019, a financial meltdown, people losing their savings in banks, the state nearly bankrupt, unable to provide basic services to people, hospitals understaffed, they just don't have the resources. As you can see, the ambulance is still making their way because they're overwhelmed in southern Lebanon, with the hundreds of those who have been injured. They have to move them to hospitals in Beirut. Hospitals in the south, for example, are understaffed. They don't have the necessary equipment to carry out all surgeries that are needed. So this is going to be a very difficult task for a government that really is a caretaker administration with very limited powers. What is happening now is that displacement is being used as a weapon of war. Israel is exerting pressure on Hezbollah to cave into their demands by causing this displacement crisis. Israel has been hitting in areas where Hezbollah has a presence, where Hezbollah supporters live. And this is really a doctrine, an Israeli military strategy that it employed in the last major war in 2006. The Dahiya doctrine is what it is called. Exert pressure on civilians, hit civilian infrastructure in order to pressure Hezbollah. So people are extremely concerned whether or not is this going to be an open-ended battle, or are both sides still trying to negotiate to find some sort of a diplomatic arrangement. So yes, Lebanon, this is really a massive displacement crisis.
Zaina, thank you very much for that. That is Zaina Khoda. She's joining us live from that highway from southern Lebanon to the capital, Beirut, near the city of Sidon. Let's bring in Imran Khan now. He's joining us live from Marjayoun in southern Lebanon. And Imran, we have seen pictures of attacks, not just in the south where you are, but also in the eastern Bekaa Valley over the past hour.
Yes, that's absolutely right. But in the last 5 minutes, we've just heard in the distance Hezbollah rockets, or what likely is to be Hezbollah rockets, a barrage going into northern Israel. Now, what I've observed over the last couple of days of being here, every time we see or hear a barrage of rockets, particularly in this area, within about 15 to 20 minutes, there's an airstrike by the Israelis. The Israelis are really doing two things right now. There's an offensive airstrike. 1,600 targets have been hit in the last 24 hours alone, say the Israelis. And then there's one that is a reactive one to whenever those rockets are launched from the territory. We are hearing that there are alarms ringing in the north of Israel. That's happening all right now. Hezbollah is hitting back. It is still very much involved in this war, in this escalation, rather. So it's a very interesting question to figure out what the Israelis are actually doing. 1,600 targets. Yeah, Hezbollah is still able to launch rockets, not just from this area, but across the border.
That sounds very similar, doesn't it, Imran? Because more than 11 months of war in Gaza, and Hamas is able to carry out attacks on Israel too. When we look at the number of people who have been killed and injured in Lebanon in just one day of these Israeli attacks, 1,600 injuries, Imran, and you were telling us yesterday about just how big the radius, the impact radius is when one of these explosions happens.
And that's absolutely right. And that is why it's going to be a very dangerous war for anybody left behind in the south, because it's not just about being in the building. You will be injured if you're within that kind of blast radius, and that could go up to half a mile depending on what kind of weapon Israel is using. You could be just sat in your house, you could be in your car, and you will be injured. Even death is inevitable, is something that might happen within that blast radius. So it's not just about hitting that target, but the figures are very stark. 492 people have been killed. 90 of those are women and children, certainly not Hezbollah. But that injury figure of 1,600, that really goes to show you how dangerous this is.
Imran, thank you very much for that. That is Imran Khan with the latest. He's joining us live from Marjayoun in southern Lebanon.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.